Harvest Moon: A Wonderful Life. I just bought the game again. I was soul-crushingly bored right from the moment I started the game. That's because the game is the slowest, most boring intro of a Harvest Moon game up to this point. There's no reason for it to take this long. You start out and see a beach with no one there, and what's revealed to be Takakura is talking to your character's father, even though he's not alive anymore. I'll be calling Takakura Takara from now on, because I always did. Maybe because it's shorter and both words sound like totally unfamiliar names to me. Every Harvest Moon game starts with a boring bunch of cutscenes, but it's especially bad in this game. I don't need Takara to show me every single part of the farm and tell me what it is. I can walk into these buildings myself and see what they are in seconds. When your players start a game, you want them to immediately be hooked and excited to play. But a long, boring series of unnecessary cutscenes you can't skip, or even speed up the text in this time, does the opposite. I wonder why the hell the text doesn't scroll on its own instead of forcing me to put the controller on the floor and mash the A button with my toe while I'm doing something actually worthwhile. I hate that when the two dogs run up to you, pointy-eared dog is the default option. Every so often I do pick the pointy-eared dog for the novelty value. The name selection screen has slippery controls. It's a bit easier than you'd think to go bring the cursor to the wrong letter with the analog stick. If anything, there's less namespaces. It's convenient that you start out with a cow. You not only have a cow in a pasture, but you don't have to upgrade the barn and coop to be able to hold more animals. He actually wastes your time even more by introducing you to a bunch of villagers. But does he introduce you to all of them at once in a town festival or something? No! There's only a few villagers, or even one measly villager, between every fade to black. Why did the programmers think I need this? I don't need to be introduced to Rock the Blonde who's too stupid to realize his Asian parents adopted him. Though I do love his necklace and cheerful attitude. For some reason, your character only gets asked his name when he's about to introduce you to other people. I don't need to see the camera zoom in on Muffy, the horribly named blonde girl who's one of only 3 bachelorettes in this game. And none of them are really love. And Celia is the only one I actually like. But that's purely based on her design. And she's also nice, but so is Muffy. Other than that, she's as boring as the rest of the bachelorettes. Muffy's even called an idiot in the manual. Every time I go digging in the mine for artifacts. I wonder why the hell I can't marry Flora. I like her hairstyle, and she would have given you a kid that had Scholar as his natural inclination. That would have been convenient for me. Nami may be smart, but she's always serious and dull, not seeming to be capable of caring about anyone. I don't see how she's likable. I can't attach myself to her well. Plus, she's got short hair. If I wanted to marry someone in a video game that didn't look like a bachelorette, I would have played the girl version. Or not played the ROM hack. And she just comes off as rude. When you offer her a gift she likes, she says she didn't say she wanted it. And she tells you to not be so eager just to say hi every time you greet her. Muffy's just barely pretty, but it's not in the way you'd expect her to be. You don't even see Nami, she's still in the inn. She must have been intended as the hard mode, because she only seems to like fossils and cooked items. You expect her to love tomatoes from the other game she's in. I hate that the game guilts you for not marrying the other girls by having them bitter and alone. Like last game. Realistically, as someone familiar with the series, you would assume that the girls would have rival love interests and you'd be able to marry them off so they could be happy. Ironic that there's 2 hippie bachelors in this game. Rock. And there's the guitarist with the green hat. Too bad he's ugly. He's still my favorite bachelor. Best personality, easily. Then Takara wastes your time showing you a woman named Chris. Talk about bad translation. And her athletic son and husband. Why? They do nothing. And why is he wasting my time showing me this old couple that does nothing? The old man looks grumpy and awful. Why the hell did they approve Daryl when he looks and seems creepy? If this game's trying to be realistic, why does it have the harvest sprites waste your time in it? Unrealistically mistaking a tall human like you for a harvest sprite. Why is your character still silent, with you never seeing what they're saying, if the game's all ambitiously about trying to be as realistic as possible? And that's why it has male and female animals. When a miracle potion was put into the series for a reason, it's much faster than normal breeding. At least the game has the novelty value of having breeding have a point. Why does the game skip ahead a few days to spring first when my character is told to go to bed? Well, I like the spring music at least, even though I'm not sure what exact instrument the GameCube MIDIs were trying to go for. It's at least to the point where I don't feel like playing the quiet winter record on the record player that I conveniently started out with. But the music gets old. It also has less than 30 days in each month, according to the calendar. That's not Harvest Moon. At least it gives the game a faster pacing. Who would ever expect that you go into first person view with Z? I don't need the option to feed pets to be a thing. Pets can't die, so it just guilts you into wasting forageable items until you know better. I hate that when I put down the dog, and probably the cat too, it doesn't bark and get hearts over its head. Until the girl version. Nothing happens but a goofy sound effect that takes you out of it. Much like how there's a goofy annoying sound effect every time you pick something up and put it away. Especially the latter. I thought they would have fixed the problem with the dog after the GBC games. I don't feel like I'm increasing its affection with me. Why can't you pet your dog or cat? You can order everything every day of the week. I really wish I could simply buy a horse from the start. You can't just buy a black horse either. Why is this game being so unrealistic if it's trying to use realism as an excuse to justify the gameplay being worse? Why is the Harvest Goddess not a thing in this game with the lame excuse that the sprites have to gather wonderful things, and even they don't know what it means? Takara has to give you a horse later. For some reason you can't simply buy one, because that'd be realistic. You're way too slow at first. They once again take the fact that it's a 3D game as an excuse not to have a run button. But there's also no way to run at all. The same logic for them giving you a milkable cow right from the start would also apply to giving you a horse right from the start. The bag in this game starts out letting you stack 99 of any item, and it has multiple different slots. You can actually pick an image of a seed below the bag space and just see your seeds, for that extra layer of convenience. But you have to do an extra button input to get to the tools or seeds section. And the game remembers which section you are at last, and that inconveniences you. And there are so many sections that it's very discouraging to get through them all when sticking to all is much more convenient feeling. It feels convenient that time stops while you're doing this, because you can still see your character, so you're not ripped out of the immersion by the menu. Well, the game has a super convenient way to teleport all the animals outside and inside by just pressing A twice in front of a metal button on the wall. And that is something every one of the games should have, because now I actually do graze my animals. It's always agonizing and arbitrary how there's a seconds-long delay after you talk to the cow, and only then are you allowed to snuggle it. I love that you can hug cows in this game. Your character snuggles with its head, and it's an extra thing you can do to boost its affection by pressing Y. But wouldn't it be obvious and more convenient to have the snuggling be something your character does while talking to it? They could have had the talking increase affection twice as much as it usually does, and kill two birds in one stone. Instead they dragged out interacting with your animals. You can't snuggle a cow without annoying them while their mouth is moving from eating outside, or when they decide to nap at the drop of a hat. And that's annoying. It's also confusing that you can talk to a cow and see a heart over its head in a text bubble more than once in a day, which makes you wonder if that increases its affection more than once in a day. How am I supposed to know that? I love that the cows give you 2 milk containers instead of 1. It just makes you take longer picking up 2 milk containers from the ground. I get why they did this though, because you feel like you're earning more money than you would have otherwise if you have to pick up 2 milk containers. I also love that you can milk the cows without even using the milker, so it saves time. That does achieve the game's feeling of being a realistic farming game well. But that all goes out the window when milking the cow magically summons some bottles blown out of thin air. It'd be annoying if you were restricted to only milking the cow below some bottles, or a bucket if you want to really be realistic. But the games before this didn't force you to waste time pressing A twice to pick up milk bottles after you milked the cow. They saved time by having you immediately hold milk over your head after you milked the cow. The two bottles clip into each other, which is good because it saves you time, but it's also unrealistic. Tucker is misleading when he says that you can milk a cow twice because she's healthy. What he really means is that two milk bottles will show up instead of one right beside each other until she starts running dry months later. So if you actually try to milk the cow twice, it'll lead to nothing but the cow having a stressed black ball over its head while it moves. You don't start out with the brush that you need to wash your animals. At least you don't have to get a shampoo tool to do it. At least you don't have to know to talk to everyone in town to get given your tools. Then why do I have to buy the brush? And the fishing rod? And you have to buy those things from Van. But you can't buy from Van every day, for some reason. Isn't it lame that the music only plays on your farm and there's no music at all in most of the areas of the game? Even the town? And the game doesn't play different music depending on the season? That's weird. I guess the game was rushed. I love that when you press A to examine a flower, you're finally told what it smells like, even if the goddess flower barely resembles a flower. I hate that some flowers are just on the field for decoration. Most are. So it takes longer to see the flowers you actually can pick. It makes no sense that you can't pick the huge amount of flowers that are around the forest or river area, and they're just distracting. Picking them would be less boring than fishing all day daily. And then it'd be a better game than last time. Why can't you be told the shipping price just by highlighting items in your rucksack? Thankfully, you can also hold it in front of you and press A for the same effect. The game will tell you about the item instead of making you throw it and destroy it. The text you get is useless. It doesn't tell you the item's price, and the text is so lazy that it's just incomplete sentences to get in as little words as possible. It's not great game design that you can't jump over the fence around Vesta's farm. Because if you could, you'd be able to buy seeds from her faster when she's outside. There's two houses in the other farm that look exactly the same, which makes it harder to memorize which is which when in the morning you have to go into one particular building to buy seeds from them. But you can buy seeds from these two anywhere in their farm if it's the right time of day. I hate that every time I press A in front of a door, my character wastes time knocking first and then waiting before going to the building. That never happens in any other game for good reason. Another instance of intrusive realism. Too bad time still passes second by second when you're indoors. But unless you're busy befriending people, at which point time seems to fly by, that's actually not a big deal. Time moves so slowly in this game that I have more than enough time to get everything I wanted done. I hate that she tells you not to sell your crops in town because we don't need the competition. Where else am I supposed to sell them? Sometimes Vesta's got a bunch of unrelated text boxes to scroll through every time you talk to her that you have to get through every time you want to buy seeds. The game is so unintuitive and annoying that I looked up guides for it after the third day, realized I was playing the game wrong, and restarted my file over again. To make a long story short, I planted the wrong kinds of seeds, because the game overwhelms you with a million different seeds you can buy, including the turnips that apparently die in spring in this game. That's why in most of the games, they only sell the seeds that you can plant in the appropriate season. You don't get to have a greenhouse. So isn't it unrealistic that you can get any seed out of season? It's unrealistic to never be able to have one when Celia's farm does. How are you supposed to know how to pronounce her name? It doesn't show you how much money it costs to buy a particular quantity of seeds before you press A to buy them, unlike last game. So if you want to avoid having your time wasted from buying the same seed types over and over or finding out you don't have enough money, you need to use a calculator. That's immersion breaking. You know what would also be realistic? If the shop could get sold out of items. Granted, once you get the seed maker, you don't have to deal with the seed shop as much. You can actually get the seed maker without having to pay for it from befriending Daryl. You'd need a guide to know that. Normal players would be ripped off. And if you don't buy it in the first chapter, you can never get it. This actually tells you about which crops grow through which season. If you're mashing A through the text before you get to buy seeds and accidentally said yes, this could never happen if you simply chose from a counter to buy seeds. Crops can grow through 2 seasons, or even 3. This actually makes sense if you consider that months don't last 30 days in this game, so the game is making up for the shorter months. The game got rid of seeing a heart on a character's character portrait, and they got rid of character portraits too, which makes sense. As for mining, it's needlessly slow and boring as a result. And you can't just go mining at any time of the day. And you have to get permission from Carter first. You don't dig with your hoe this time because that'd be too simple. Instead you dig for archaeological stuff to be more realistic. Except you're a farmer. How are you allowed to do the digging with them? But it does feel more grounded in reality regardless. Never mind, you find a gemstone anyways. And it's not even a real one. So it's not even like this to be realistic. I definitely prefer getting ores and gems because it actually makes sense that people would want to buy them because it can be used for things. So it's inferior to be getting fossils and old coins, which are so worthless to the archaeologists that even you're allowed to keep them. What ruins mining is that every time you dig something up, you have to wait through an exclamation mark with a goofy sound effect over your character's head and some unrealistic light showing up for a while that unrealistically makes noise, and then finally, you get the thing you dug up. And then you have to get past the text box about it. What boring padding. Why can't you just hit a rock with your hammer and instantly get an item? You don't actually see a hole show up. Instead, the entire floor tile turns brown. And the next time you dig, it doesn't look different at all. The controls are slippery in the mine so that you move too far ahead. And I wouldn't be going too far ahead in the mines if the squares were bigger. It's weird to think that you can dig in the squares twice to get stuff. You only think to do that because you're desperate and think, come on, that can't be all you can do. That would be terrible game design. Like having Carter's offer to explain mining to you be the default option every time. Also, there's only one floor as opposed to tons of floors to get specific items from particular ones. But considering how boring and bare bones mining is in this game, it's a good thing it's over quickly. This game forces a time limit on you when you're digging stuff up. Every time you leave the mine, the game wastes your time because Carter is required to be talked to first. And you have to answer yes when he asks you twice if you want to leave. It takes longer to leave the mine if you talk to Carter first. When you decide to leave the mine by pressing A near the staircase, Carter only asks if you want to leave once. Why can't that always be the case for him? Then you're forced to show him something you got. Well, at least your character only shows him one thing, even if that's immersion breaking and confusing. It's such obvious padding that you have to deal with this. The shipping bin only takes dairy products, so at first you can't even sell the stuff you got from the mine. I love that you can put multiple stuff in the bin at a time without any time passing, and stuff stacks in there, and even has multiple slots. So the bin itself would be fantastic, if it held more than milk, if it let you ship everything. Every time you link to friends in Mineral Town in this game, you have to mash A to get through redundant text that tells you that you can only link to that game. I don't understand why there's so much of it. This happens every single time, and the text doesn't exactly show up instantly. It scrolls by. What's really lame is that you can't just have max linking stars the first time you link, even if that was at the penultimate chapter of the game. It sucks that it works like that, because you need all the linking stars to get the Seaside Cottage. I never unlocked it no matter how hard I tried. Even when the linking process is working, it's full of padding in both games, so you can't just get everything out of it right away. You can sell stuff to the villagers yourself. I also remember hating it, because the villagers slowly walk around and you have to hope that a villager will decide to buy something from you, and they won't buy everything from you. And it's not like there's always villagers showing up, so you have to time it right. And it takes a long time to sell all the stuff you have to them when you're waiting this long. You don't have to talk to a villager to know if you befriended them. They just look at you, so that's faster. But you'd think they would look at you anyways. Rock turns his head when walking by me, even though I don't give him any gifts. You don't even have to talk to him and he likes you already. I think I like him because he talks about something other than just the weather. He also likes to have fun. Giving gifts to people was ruined in this game, because there's actually a wrong time to do it when it never makes any sense that someone would not accept a gift they like just because it's the right time of day. Giving gifts is a mess. None of the games before this game had that restriction. This makes it needlessly annoying to get the Seed Maker, because you can only give Daryl a gift at a very specific time of the day that's such a small window. This is mind-blowingly idiotic, and it's completely unrealistic. Sometimes I have to try multiple times in a row before I can finally give someone a gift. So that's not realistic either. Why'd I have to select yes when trying to give someone a gift now? Why would you ever want to say no? That never happened in the earlier games. I love that Daryl goes to your farm. It makes giving him a gift easier. It would be so much simpler to befriend Ruby if she was always in the inn. Instead, you have to go all over town for her if you don't happen to get lucky enough to just bump into her when she's walking around town by accident. It does save you time that most of the people in the game walk all over the overworld, so most of the time you talk to people, it's outside. But when you talk to them outside, all they want to talk about is the weather. So nobody feels like they have a personality in this game. Thank goodness it only takes a couple of gifts to befriend everybody. I hate every time there's a character in the game where when you offer him a gift, no is the default option. Because when you say no to anyone, you're screwed for the day. You can't offer him a gift of that type anymore. The girl version changed it so that Romana is this way. I'm sure the previous game did this as well, but you can only give one gift to somebody a day, unless you give them a gift of a different type. But how would you ever know that after playing the previous one? I didn't know that until I was an adult and I looked it up. The default option for Muffy isn't no, but it is an option that wouldn't raise her affection as much. Why do they have that as well as yes? Like it adds that much challenge that you have to press up. Then what was the point of even doing it? If you simply hold A when talking to people, then if they suddenly ask if the gift is for them and the default answer is no, you don't select no. The shelf has always been glitchy. When you press A in front of it, you'll see that there's apparently nothing in your rucksack. You have to be holding something and press A, and then you'll see the thing you're holding on the left slot. Press A over it, and all of a sudden now the game recognizes all the things in your rucksack. It's good that the game helpfully tells you what exact seed is planted when you press A in front of it. It also helpfully tells you that the soil is not very fertile, after you already planted in it. It's not like if you plant a crop in the best field, it's guaranteed to be a rank or two better, which is how it should work. I could have pressed A in front of the soil and been told how fertile it was before planting, but I didn't think to do so because no other game in the series lets you do that. I'm glad the watering cans hold a lot more water than last time, so I don't have to refill the large one twice every time I do the farming. You can also plant fruit trees, a first for the series. They take a long time to grow. just not as long as in real life. They basically take a year. Imagine the poor player who did nothing but buy tree seeds because they are the most expensive ones. Just be unable to profit off them until Chapter 2. I had to look up online whether watering trees was a good idea, because the soil they're on doesn't always look wet. It looks just like the soil around it. It turns out you don't have to water trees after all. So why are you able to do it? It just confuses people into doing that. And that's not fun. I planted a lot of seeds. And used the old tools code to get that watering can W already because I read online that it waters 10 squares at a time. Apparently that's only in the girl version. And in this version of the game, it only watering 1 square and running out of water is a horrible glitch. Year 2 is the earliest you can get it. That's how long it takes for Another Wonderful Life to be better. My character's stomach growls as the Japanese onomatopoeia goo appears in the screen, and it just stands there doing nothing but holding its chest for a while. It's lazy that there's only 2 tired animations. Why isn't there a stamina meter yet? I'd spent the day making sure to eat every herb I found on my farm, and still, he ended up hungry by the end of the day. I went to the inn, and it doesn't offer anything to eat this time. I went to the bar. The only drink I wanted to choose was Moo Moo Milk because it seems like the only non-alcoholic option. Why do they even offer alcoholic options in Harvest Moon, when that would obviously increase your fatigue points? But after drinking that milk, my character still did the hungry animation when I pressed start. And this is the point in the game where I can't cook fish because you can't cook anything but salads and soups at first. This game's trying to be realistic, but getting to see the tiredness animation on a pause menu is obviously unrealistic compared to what the previous games went with. You don't like the idea of wasting potential profit by eating it. It was better in the GBC games where you couldn't sell the food even if you wanted to. It's extremely unrealistic to have a village with no grocery store in it, like the previous game had. Wouldn't it be nice if befriending a villager meant they bought mealtime food for you to eat that you couldn't ship? Or better yet, Takakura could do it from the start since he cares about helping you out from the start of the game. I don't think there are wild dogs in this game. When it reaches midnight, the game fades to black. I just pointlessly saw the game telling me that it went to the next day by showing me a big page with a number on it being ripped off, revealing another one. That means you get taken out of fishing if you're fishing, so you don't want that. You can get drowsy in this game too. I really would have appreciated being able to pause and press Z to warp home in this game, because it's tedious to have to trudge all the way back home. I also despise that new game is the default option on the title screen, because you'll inevitably press A over it without meaning to after waiting an eternity to get past the arrogant ass logos to get to that screen. I don't remember it taking so long to get to the title screen of real Harvest Moon games. This is a problem you need to maneuver around every time you boot up the game through no fault of your own. So like all the other problems, it adds up. A bigger problem for me is that saving takes forever. And it discourages you from saving until you're literally about to turn the game off. At least you see a green bar fill up when it's happening to let you know how close it is to being done. And I love the saving music. Why do I always have to pick what memory card to use? Shouldn't it be obvious that I only want to use the one I'm already using? Every time I save, I also have to see a text box to scroll through that tells me that the save progress has been saved on the memory card. That also wastes my time. Why did they think we need to be told that? At least when you start a new file, the game automatically has the file you're playing in selected when you try to save. This game can't even get sleeping right. You sleep for 6 hours at a time no matter what. And the game wastes your time showing you dreams that are literally just little letterboxed squares that consist of only one image. The dreams indicate your character's stamina status. I couldn't go mining one time because I mashed the A button in front of the diary trying to save the game, and sleep was the default option. It actually forces you to sleep regardless of what you want. Diary should be the default option. For some reason, you only get the money from shipping after looking in your earnings book next to the shipping bin. It's very confusing because in every other game, you get the money automatically every day in the evening. Van, of all people, is the only way you're able to sell most things. He's not there every day. Van only shows up on a few measly days from the month. And one of those days isn't even marked on the calendar. For some reason. The seed shop's open every day. Why not Van? And he only shows up at noon. When he opens or closes up shop, no matter where you are in the game, as long as it's outside, you have to scroll through text from him. And the game shows Van saying he'll go home with 2 text lines, when it could have easily been 1. Why they bother showing us this if they're too lazy and cheap to animate him actually closing up shop, or opening up shop? This isn't in the girl version. I hate that when Van's wiping his forehead, I can't interact with him. This is a needlessly terrible way to handle shipping, because having to sell every item type to Van individually takes forever. It's a problem that you can't immediately go to 1 from 99 at any point by just pressing up. Why do you have to wait so long before you can do something after you buy from him? Whenever you agree to buy something, your character doesn't automatically put it away after he gets it. So if you try to buy something right afterwards, Van will ask you if you want to sell it. That's annoying because he's the only way you can get a fishing rod in the first chapter. This is fixed in the girl version. I remember finding it satisfying to see my cow go from dirty looking to clean. And it does make sense you'd have to wash them. But it's just one extra thing you have to do. You can't just teleport the animals to the watering hole thing. You'd still have to slowly push every single animal over to it to brush them there. A few of the animals spawn far away from it and they don't move around much outside, which at least makes taking care of them without forgetting which animal you tended to a lot easier. In this game, you have to choose to push a cow. This conveniently turns the cow around if you want, which is distractingly unrealistic. Why can't they be trained to go to the washing hole automatically? They can be trained to go to the milking room automatically. It's so stupid that if you try to wash an animal while it randomly took a nap during the day, it'll not only be mad at you briefly, but it won't get washed. And you can't wash chickens, so it's jarring that you only have to wash the barn animals. Why force you to do it if it's only realistic with one animal? Selective realism makes it clear that it's not about realism, it's about being needlessly dickish for the sake of a challenge. The fishing rod doesn't dip almost immediately and give you a chance to catch something right away, like in the GBC Harvest Moon games. I mean, it's way better than Save the Homeland's fishing, but that's not saying much. The way it works is unintuitive. You have to wait to get a bite enough times. You have to wait until it makes a sound effect and the visual makes it obvious. But even then, you can reel in too early and not get the fish. There's nothing more frustrating in this game than this. You shouldn't get punished for being too good at timing. Why can't I see the fish in the river? This is a 3D game. Even Sonic Adventure did that. And once you put away a fish, it puts away your fishing rod. That didn't happen in the GBC games for good reason. It really only involves holding A at the right time. So that's a lot better than last time. Sure, it would suck if you had to mash the A button. That would hurt your thumb. Big compliment here. As long as I have the game volume up, I can successfully fish while barely even looking at the screen. This is because the game plays 3 sound effects in the water before you finally hear the sound indicating that you got a bite. I like that the screen shakes when the fish are biting the rod to direct your attention to it. It's baffling that I can't fish in the sea, even though there is one. But it's actually a good thing that you can't fish in the sea. Because if you could fish in the sea, you'd have to go all the way over to the sea every time you want to fish, and then go all the way back home every single night. It's a lot more convenient that you have to fish in the river. I I love that this game is an easy one to trigger heart events in. You can trigger them when you walk out of your house during the day by accident. Not all of them. I still haven't seen all Nami's events. And that's another thing. You don't even have to see all the heart events to get married. A ton of villagers have a special award for befriending them. You can get specific tools from them. You'd think they would be better than the light tools, but no. I think the weird sickle's better. But the problem is, who you befriend will somehow influence the future career of your character's child. So it's a good thing there's multiple people you have to befriend to get the musician ending. So you're not screwed if you befriend Romina. Because who you befriend influences your kid, you're better off just getting all the tools on a throwaway file where you don't care what the kid does. There's no evidence of relationship decay in this game. If I hadn't gone out of my way to research it online, I never would have found out I had to go to Ruby's kitchen at 9 specifically to get the ruby spice from her. Wouldn't she be in the kitchen every mealtime? Guess not. Just try to cook with the spice alone and you'll duplicate it for money. It's just as boring as the other gameplay styles in the game. So it's not like it's a different experience using it to make money.